Yes, good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you for inviting me as a speaker in this forum. I see that the audience is composed by qualified, very experienced professionals, so it's an honor. I've been 16 years a lawyer. Half of my career, the first half of my career has been as a corporate and contract law attorney, and then I move on to the construction area, so I consider myself pretty much a construction lawyer. I worked 8 years for the Panama Canal Authority and leading the team for the design and build of the third set of locks, the expansion program. And then in 2015, I decided to come to Qatar and continue my career in construction, work for Qatar Rail as a legal counsel for the Metro of Doha. So my topic, it's about claims and dispute resolutions procedures under international construction contracts, and I'm going to make a comparison between the Panama Canal expansion program and the Metro of Doha in terms of the claim structures based on establishing those two contracts. So my presentation is divided in 5 parts. The objectives, we're going to see an overview of the construction projects. I'm going to show some pictures. I'm going to play a video. The third part is going to be the core of the presentation. We're going to discuss and see both structures and talk about the reasons behind both owners deciding either structure, and we're going to come into some conclusions and the closing, right? For the sake of this presentation, I'm going to refer to the Panama Canal as the ACP, which is Panama Canal Authority, and to the Doha Metro as Qatar Rail, right? So, Panama Canal, located in South America in Panama, where I come from. The project is a new lane to double the waterway capacity. The impact is economies of scales and international maritime trade. The improvement is to increase 5,000 TEUs up to 14,000 TEUs. What does that mean? Well, pass bigger ships. The biggest ships in the world right now are passing through the new canal, and they are called Neo-Panamax. The expansion program was composed by 9 civil contracts, and the features are 2 sets of locks, one in the Atlantic, another in the Pacific, to double the capacity. The Doha Metro, located in Qatar, obviously, it's a project, a new rail network to serve the capital and suburbs. The improvement is going to be the main transportation system for the FIFA World Cup 2022, composed also by 9 civil contracts, and the future is for the phase number 1, 3 lines, red, gold, and green, 37 stations, 76 kilometers out of 53 kilometers are underground. So lots of underground works. The commencement and completion dates of the Panama Canal, 2007, and it was inaugurated and opened to the world in June 2016. The cost is $5.2 billion without claims, obviously. And let's see the Doha Metro, commencement in 2012, the completion date 2018. The cost is 30 billion Qatari riyals, and both contracts, FIDIC Yellow Book, lump sum fixed price contract. I assume that most of you are familiar with the form of FIDIC. This is the Doha Metro, how all the network goes and up and down and so on. This is me visiting the site, progress in 2016, Red Line North, and there was a mock-up of the stations which turned out pretty nice. Then before and after pictures, this is February 2008 in the Panama Canal, the same place in 2016, the same person as well, by the way. 2011, the same place, 2016, how it looks right now. 2012, 2016. And let's watch the video, which is available on YouTube. It's a time-lapse created officially by the Panama Canal Authority. I just thought that the Middle East audience would be interested in knowing what went on in the other part of the world, because there's a lot of construction going on in this region. Right, that's kind of an intense video, I have to say. I hope you liked it. Let's go back to the presentation. Right, the most exciting part of the presentation, claims, dispute, and arbitration comparison and analysis. Okay, so documents. What was the approach of both entities in terms of documents, what they wanted? Okay, both entities accepted and recognized that there will be claims and disputes, of course. Of the contract provisions that require a claim assessment process in as much as detail as possible. QR's approach was to be very prescriptive. What this means is that they wanted the contractor to submit programs and time claims, specifically time impact analysis was required by the contract. The ACP approach was a little bit more general. They wanted the standard fee clause, no time impact analysis was required by the contract. The dispute resolution in both projects was based on the Federal book divided in 4 stages: contractor's claims, dispute, expert termination, dispute adjudication board, and finally the arbitration. Contractor's claims. Okay, this is the first stage of the claims process. So what was a sensible time period? 7, 14, 21, 28 days from the event to notification of the claim. QR's approach was to require 14 days for the first notice, otherwise time barred. Then that's not standard FIDIC. 28 days for particulars of the claim, otherwise the contractor loses entitlement, not standard FIDIC. Engineer to state assessment in 42 days of particulars, and the standard provision at the bottom of the clause 20.1, contractor's failures to comply with any clause will be taken into account. ACP's approach was a little bit more standard. 28 days for first notice, otherwise time barred. 28 days of particulars of the claim. Engineers to state assessment within 42 days. And also the standard clause at the bottom, contractor's failures to comply with any clause will be taken into account. Now, let's talk a little bit about that. If you see QR's approach, 28 days of particulars of the claims, otherwise contractor loses entitlement, that's a huge change in the FIDIC standard clause. And that resolved a lot of issues that I'd encountered in the ACP. Why? Because when you have standard FIDIC clause that says 28 days for particulars of claim, period, contractors, what they do, and they set up their strategies pretty much around that 28 days period, and they just let the time go, and they don't submit any particulars. And that creates a lot of problems from the owner's perspective, because you can have claims that, passes 1 year, 2 years without any particulars. And the only punishment, what I call it punishment, is the contractor's failure to comply with any clause will be taken into account. Whilst with the QR's approach, if the contractor does not submit particulars within 28 days, he loses entitlement. So it's more of a strong provision, but we're going to see why QR decided to go that route. QR objective was to impose discipline on the contractor. They want to allow the engineer to be aware of issues early and keep issues small and be able to address them promptly. Will's ACP's objective was to create some certainty in the contractor of a standard FIDIC claims process and go more standard, right? Allow some time flexibility in providing particulars and resolve issues as they arise and addressed by contractor on the go. Disputes, okay. Very controversial. DAB, yes or no? QR said no. And I think that's sort of a very Middle East thing, right? So, but why? Well, they had very strong reasons, and these are the reasons. The project is too long and complicated, and they had 9 major packages, all of the packages based on FIDIC Yellow Book. So that was going to create, to impanel in 2013 9 DABs for the duration of the projects 2020 and beyond. So they also wanted to manage issues earlier, and they want to engage QR management as much as possible. The objective, no residual disputes at the end of the project. ACP's approach said, okay, I want to go standard FIDIC, I want to have a DAB, which is, some sort of internationally more of the accepted method in construction. So, and there's a big difference between Caterrail and ACP. Even though the expansion program was composed by 9 civil packages, only this third set of logs, the sign and build of the third set of logs, only 1 contract was based on FIDIC. So, obviously, only 1 GAB for the duration of the project. So the ACP also wanted management to be fully engaged in the project, and I lived it and experienced it. Management was hands-on in the project, and they wanted to manage issues resolution at an early stage before progressing to arbitration. So how was structured? Okay, Caterrail said, I want to have an internal mechanism before moving on to the expert determination, right? Because they had an independent expert determination similar to a DAB process. But they said, I want an internal mechanism to be able to sit down with the contractor, talk about the issues, the claims, and maybe reach a solution before resorting to an independent expert determination. ACP said, no internal mechanism, I want DAB straight. So the dispute resolution structure was, as I said, DRE first, expert determination, and the DRE is comprised by a senior representative of the employer and contractor, assisted by the engineer, contractor representative, or such others as they need, 60 days to resolve disputes, and the executives cannot themselves bind the parties, any resolution only by formal written communication. The expert determination stage is the parties agrees and appoint an independent expert, no agreement, then the parties agree an institution to appoint, the experts empowered to set timetables, procedures, fix hearings, inform himself independently, consult with third parties. The expert determination is binding until referred to arbitration, and the costs are shared by the parties. ACP. Only 1 stage, as I said, DAB. GAB composed by 3 members. Each member shall be impartial and independent, not give advice concerning the conduct of the contract. Very important. 84 days to give its reasoned decisions, and 28 days after the DAB decisions, either party may issue a notice of dissatisfaction and commence arbitration. So let's pause a little bit there. Let's talk about DABs, because I know that's a very controversial subject here in the Middle East. And I personally think that, I haven't been in the Middle East for a long time, I have to accept. Only 2 years in Qatar, and I'm just talking from my experience of 2 years. I personally think that DABs can be very beneficial to the project and play an important role in circumstances where there are high amounts of claims at stake, the project is in a critical stage, the financial situations are putting the project at risk, and the DABs can make decisions that can inject some cash flow, right? And you want to push the project forward. And you need some balance, right? You have a very intense contractor trying to, drown the employer with claims and with unjustified amounts. And, DAB can serve as a mechanism to, get some balance between the parties. You don't want to be also an unreasonable employer because, later on in the arbitration, that's not going to be very beneficial. So, however, GABs might be controversial as well. Decisions especially, and I lived and I experienced them, because if the decisions are not well-founded and were driven by the best interest of the project, that phrase is just like very unique for me. In my 8 years of Panama Canal, everybody was talking about the best interest of the project, the best interest of the project. What is that? Well, I promised myself I'm going to write an article in the future about what is the best interest of the project, because there's no right and wrong. However, if a DAB decision is only based on that instead of the merits of the claims, I don't think that's very good. And tend to favor contractors, that's not very good as well. So there's going to be some kind of balance, and DAB members should also be very aware of the responsibility they have in their decision and their projects, okay? And what happens if you hate so much a DAB decision? Well, you go to arbitration because the contract provides you that right. And that leads us to this slide, which is, what was the arbitration in both projects? ICC arbitration in both, ICC rules. Canal said evidence, no particular rules. ACP said IBA rules on the taking of evidence. 3 arbitrators for Canal, ACP said 3 arbitrators, lawyers, venue Qatar, venue Miami, laws of Qatar, laws of Panama, and the big difference between both contracts. Canal said no arbitration until the taking over certificate is issued. ACP said arbitration before or after the certificate is issued, I don't care. So what does that mean? Let's see. QR approach said, I don't want Canal project contractors coping with an arbitration during delivery, full stop. I can't deal with this is too messy, I have 9 packages, and arbitration during delivery is gonna distract people, and it's gonna put the project at a high risk. And they also made very, very clear that if the contractor is terminated, he cannot arbitrate until the works are completed, even though the works are completed by a replacement contractor. What's ACP's approach? They say, I want to allow arbitration in the middle of the project. I don't care. And why? Okay. I think that one of the factors that made the ACP go that route is that, let's be clear, the Panama Canal is the main resource of this country. It makes tons of money, and everybody has their eyes on the Panama Canal. So the government and the Panama Canal Authority owes a duty to report to the Panamanian nation everything that goes on with this resource. So they were thinking, okay, We want to defend our claims, to defend our position, and have the best defense and robust, the best defense and the most robust defense ever, just to also not only defend the interests of the Panama Canal, but also give our Panamanian nation the view that we are fighting for the interests and we want to respond in the case that, the contractor is just filing claims and there's no arbitration, no resolution in the middle of the project. They have to wait until 8 years that the project is completed. And they're going to say, oh, ACP is a reasonable employer. Oh, ACP didn't write the input requirements very well. Oh, they don't know what they're doing. So ACP said, listen, I want my best case. So they wanted to have engineers, geotechs, project control people working in the tendering process, in the procurement process, involved in the arbitration. And actually, by the time that I left Panama, we had 4 arbitration cases, everybody involved, and I think that you will do a good job. So, conclusions. After this I have to say, short experience, I hope that, of course, my experience is going to increase. What do you do to have a positive environment for dispute resolution in construction contracts, okay? I come up with the conclusion that you need 3 things. You need good documents, of course, the best contract ever written in the world. You need to involve higher management. Although some people think that higher management involved is going to be messy, I don't think so. I think that these people, higher management being involved, help at some point, if not always. Because these are people that have, different perspective of the business. They know information that maybe other people, they don't know. They sit down, negotiate, and they are the ones that take decisions, and they are unaccountable for that, right? And the third element, but not less important, effective contract management. If you are not managing your contract, you are dead. That is my opinion. So you can buy number 1, good documents, but you need to grow and own number 2 and number 3. And with that, then thank you, and on my presentation.